Okay, let's jump straight into it. Good afternoon once again, however. And my guest today, well, Ed Gumbs is here. He was here with me last weekend, and we had quite a discussion on what is happening in Parliament and the parliamentary procedure. Today, he has committed himself to come back and have a conversation with me as a former member of the Executive Board of Directors there at GEBE. And of course, he comes well with a wealth, the supervisory board. Yep, he comes with a wealth of knowledge as to how the system and its function is working there at GEB. So we will have a conversation with him because it seems like there won't be any quick end to be talking about GEB, and a lot of things that are in the mix that we don't get is information that may help us to better understand why things are the way it is. So let's make use of him and what he has to offer. He loved the idea of sharing information. With that said, let me say a special good afternoon to Mr. Gumbs. Just pull the microphone a little bit to your left.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let me put this way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir, my dear friend Wendell. It's always a pleasure being with you on the radio. And I like your introduction, but I like to correct things because I was member of the supervisory board of directors.
Okay, not the executive board of directors. Thank you for correcting that. No, we are.
That's something else. That's
yes.
another level. The executive, they make the decisions in the company. The supervisory board is an heir, a sparring partner to the executive board, for instance.
And you give advice.
If the executive board want to do something, they go to the supervisory board and they discuss it. But ultimately, it is the executive board that makes the decisions.
Okay.
It's very important to have that well, because some people think the supervisory board has no executive powers in GEBE. They're just a supervisory board. What means supervisory? They look over the shoulders of the executive and they consult with the executives whether they were doing it good or maybe they could do it another way. And they are the heir of the shareholders because they are appointed by the shareholders. It's there to people call it the raad van commissarissen, but we call it the supervisory board. Both are almost the same thing. They don't have the same rights, but it's just for the understanding. I'm explaining that.
Okay, yeah. Let's start where everybody who is connected to GEBE and what concerns them. Is there any way, let's get this out of the way first, is there any way they can do anything to help make their own consumption or the bill they pay less?
Yes, there's always one way. If you consume less, you pay less. But now the thing is, can you consume less? Because the fridge you need, the aircon you need electricity for your lights, for the television, and so on. So the point is, can you consume less? That's the first question.
And what the answer is, yes or no? Because you're saying you need all of these things.
Yeah, but of course you can try to be aware of any time you leave a room and the light's on, you switch out the lights.
Okay.
Unnecessary. People say, no, it costs you more because on, out. That's a misconception. If you turn it out, it doesn't cost more because it's a whole grid going around. And your consumption is a direct consumption. So if you don't take, you don't have to pay for what you don't take. They only charge you for what you consume. So there you have a little. But that doesn't mean that you have a lot of things. There are bigger things that can be done to see how we can bring down the price of electricity on our beautiful island of St.Maarten.
Yeah.
But that's a bigger case. I understood that You know, in my time at the supervisory board of directors, we had the fuel clause too. There were always discussion about it,
And
and
that's the big elephant in the room. And that's where we were going.
so when
Because a lot of people
yeah,
think that we don't really need this, or we need to get away from it.
yeah, but the thing is, when I came back September 2024, I was surprised that fuel clause was still a discussion. I thought it by now would have been well explained to the people what it is about. Because basically, fuel clause is nothing less or nothing more, or you want it, that the price of the fuel you use, the LFO, HFO, to produce electricity, and for LFO, HFO, lubricants, that's what you buy. So you buy these four things to produce electricity. They have a price. GEBE is priced by the deliverer, the distributor, a certain price for the delivery of that. And so that's the fuel price. That's pure to make electricity, alone to produce electricity. But there are people that are producing the electricity. There is a management, there is a staff, there is an administration. There are a lot of people working for GEBE. And that isn't in the fuel clause. It's not a part of the fuel clause. It is part of
The cost.
if you want, of course, of GEBE. If you allow me, I would like to discuss a bill just for the understanding of it.
Okay.
What are we talking about? Because it's important that we're talking about the same thing. When I say fuel clause, it means the money we paid to buy the fuel and the lubricants. That's fuel clause. And then how do we get those expenses divided over our consumers of the electricity is by looking at the amount of kilowatt hours our clientele consumes. Now we produce much more than only what we consume, because we make we produce whatever is asked, but there are three elements in it that you have to be aware of. One, the own consumption. To the plant to work, it consumes electricity too. And you can't charge the plant for that electricity. So that electricity,
Consumer pays for it.
our own computer for the
Function of the plant.
yeah. A second, and that is something we have to say. Basically, the electricity that the 7Cs, the water plant, consumes,
GEBE pays for it too.
we pay it. The electricity. So the electricity side is, as it were, subsidizing into subsidizing the water plant, because they don't pay the electricity.
Okay.
They get it for nothing. So so it doesn't go in the price of the water. No, it goes by the electricity consumers. And that's a question you can ask yourself, whether that is good or not. So that's, and the third element that is in the fuel of in the total consumption of electricity, we have a fixed rate for loss, which is now 8.5% of the production we consider loss. So it is deducted from the net production. So if you look at that, I just had the last figure and it told me it was now 4.5%, but we're using 8.5. So there you can gain something. what I said, the fuel clause for the 7Gs, why doesn't water pay electricity just as any consumer? Because they're a consumer. They use electricity to produce water. So they pay for the electricity and put it in the price. But now artificially, we're keeping the water price low because the electricity is being subsidized or paid by the electricity consumer. And that's something you can discuss about. But there are more elements that you can discuss about. And that's why I said it's going to take more. Because, as I said, it is simple. You are billed for the fuel you buy to produce electricity. You produce the electricity, but certain elements of the total consumption of electricity is not chargeable, so you deduct it. So the net sales, as we call, are lower than the production. But the expenses for fuel are for the total production. So now we call it a fuel clause. We divide the price of the fuel that we pay to produce. We divide it on the net production, the net sales, and then you have what we call fuel clause. And that's why I wanted to look at the bill.
It's still highly technical for me to even get my mind around all that you have just said. But one thing I get out of it is, if the cost for oil goes up, then we will.
Yeah.
Our net will be broken here to be able to produce energy.
That's why the fuel clause was invented in the whole Caribbean. There are more islands that use the same thing that's called fuel clause. That is for the going up and the fluctuation in the oil price to stabilize it a little bit. That's why we work with this system. But again, it is what you put in it to understand it. And when you get a bill of GEBE, I would recommend anybody to look good at the bill, and then maybe it gets a little bit clearer to you, because there are three elements in the bill. Three elements.
Yeah.
One, we have a grid. The electricity goes around the whole island on the grid. And the first 100 kilowatt hours is to support that grid.
Yeah, okay, fine.
That's the first 100. It's not the first 100 kilowatt hours for the grid.
Second.
The second price, you see, it's like a consumption. So it's the total consumption that you consume. 100 kilowatt hours is deducted. It's especially for the grid. And the other is for the expenses of GEBE, of the staff.
Okay.
Because it's not only fuel, because they have people working there. So you have to pay them.
And thirdly,
that's the second thing that you see. And then the third thing you see, the fuel clause. That is that 100% for the grid, and the other consumption of not consumption, the total minus 100 is for the staff, not for the staff. And the fuel clause, that's the oil. That's what we buy. And that we have to understand.
Yeah.
And then you'll understand that if you use a lot of electricity, the fuel clause will go up because you're buying more oil and lubricants.
That's GEBE on the whole. But when I look at that, and I look at some of the concerns that some of the consumers have, is getting a bill and they can't seem to figure out how they come by that cost when it comes to bill.
That's why I'm trying to explain explicitly what is in the thing. We have to pay for a grid. We have to maintain a grid. We have people. I'm saying we. GEBE has people working for GEBE.
That is understood.
You need to pay, and GEBE buys fuel oil, and they have to pay for it. Now I heard somebody telling me, we can get rid of the fuel clause, but the fuel is bought. You have to buy the oil, and so somebody has to pay it. You won't get it for nothing, because if you don't pay, you won't get it, and if you don't get it, you can't produce electricity.
Yeah.
So we're in a vicious. But as a whole, in the price of the LFO and HFO, there's another element in it that we call, when
As light LFO and HFO is light fuel. And heavy
light
fuel.
fuel and high fuel.
Yeah, and that's the kind of engines that we have at this moment.
That's what
that's
we buy.
putting out current. Yes.
Yeah, that's why what we produce is electricity, or the engines run on that, on LFO and HFO. But the price of the fuel, in that price, we have also the so-called, you remember the Causeway Bridge? When it was built, it was funded, they thought about a so-called true port fee, that everything that comes through the port would be charged
subject to a fee.
That fee. So also
the oil,
the fuel, that's in it. And you can ask yourself whether government can look at that and say, do we really have
need a true
port fee? Because if you bring that out, or if you bring that down,
then the fuel
the
clause
price
will
will go down.
Okay.
Because now you're paying it twice. You're paying it in the harbor, and you're paying it in the bill that you get from the distributor. I don't like to mention the name. So there are possibilities to which you have to look, but it isn't that easy, because a member of parliament came with a initiative. Yeah, we have to do something about the fuel clause, and we have to bring it down. We had the government who also was busy, and they gave to the RCRC a order to look at it, what we can do with that fuel clause. And they came to the conclusion that we can do little about that. But one of the advices was, for you?
Go ahead.
Okay. One of the advices was, look at the calculation of the price that you charge for kilowatt hours. Look carefully what is in it, and if there are elements in it that you can change. But that's a whole trajectory, and none of the two initiatives, the initiative of a member of parliament or the initiative of the prime minister to do something about the fuel clause, has came to an outcome, because it's more difficult than we thought.
Yeah.
We want it. I am certain that the member of parliament wants that for his people, for us, for the people. I'm certain that the prime minister wants that for the people, his people. But we have to produce electricity one way or the other. So we have to pay for it. And so now it's looking good at the elements that are in the kilowatt hour price. If you have to look there, if you can have some reduction in that. As I said, for instance, the clause that we're doing, the electricity loss, it's lower than what we're using now. So if we adjust that, the netto chargeable electricity will be more. So the fuel clause can go down a little, but it's not a question of hundreds because it's a misunderstanding, and that's I'm putting emphasis on that. The misunderstanding is like the fuel clause is something on its own that GEBE gets it. GEBE gets no sense of it. GEBE has to pay it. GEBE charges to its consumers and pay it to the distributor of LFO, HFO, and lubricants. That's what happens. It doesn't go to GEBE. A lot of people think, oh, GEBE is making profit on the fuel clause and it goes to GEBE. Nothing goes to GEBE. GEBE has to pay it because that is what GEBE is charged for, to be able to produce electricity.
Okay, that is pretty clear. I think what people are more concerned about is whether or not they can pay less. Is there anything that you may have some light that you can shed on that can help GEBE to pay?
Again, it's the consumption that each individual makes. So if you consume less, you pay less because you are only charged for your own consumption. It isn't so that...
But that's not going to affect the fuel clause, which is the greater charge on your bill.
Yeah, but that's
maybe a small amount on your consumption.
But that's the market price. GEBE has no influence on the fuel price that they have to pay. They get a bill.
And they have to pay it.
And they have to pay it.
It's charged to us. The consumers pay it. GEBE pay their bill. Okay. What about this? Most recently, there have been a talk in Parliament about LNG. I want to know what you think about whether that would make any sense to help bring the cost down for consumers.
Definitely is cheaper, far much cheaper than LFO, HFO. That's true. But our engines, the engine park, is an old engine park, and they only produce on LFO, HFO. So if you want to use those same engines, you will have to rebuild them for the use of LNG, which is going to cost a lot of money. And the question is, can you rebuild them? So then you'll have to talk about buying engines, new engines, that are capable to use LNG. But we can't even buy engines, not even use engines for LFO, HFO, because there is no money.
Yeah.
The GEBE is in a situation that they will have to go to the capital market to loan the money, borrow the money, but that's a long way, and it can be done. But remember, we'll have to buy new engines
to be able to use the low fuel.
And then to lower the total expense of energy, of fuel.
Yeah.
That you guys.
So these engines that they have at the moment would be no use to GEBE if they have to switch from fossil fuel, which is
LFO, HFO, to LNG.
To LNG.
No, it's not so. I doubt whether you can, but I'm not a technician. That's a technical part which I like to distance.
We're just trying to find a cheaper way to produce energy so that the consumers can pay less.
No, but one thing I would like to say, let government look carefully and thoroughly to the true part fee.
The true port fee. Yeah.
The true port fee. Because
if they drop that, you're saying, keep it
price
simple.
can go down.
If you drop it,
the price go down.
Yeah.
The price go down. Simply like that. But if you drop that, how are the debt that you have on the bridge going to be paid?
Oh, so that bridge really brings some.
Yeah, you have expenses with that. You borrowed money to build the bridge, and you make the contract for so many years.
Yeah.
In so many years you're going to pay it. and that is paid via the true port fee.
So they have to stay there.
If you take it, then you have to do something else.
Yeah.
But
To pay that bill.
yeah,
Something else I wanted to ask you, but I'm getting the signal that we're halfway through, so I have to take a break. But when we come back, I really want to ask you to look at another proposal that was on the table for energy, and we'll talk about that, folks, right after we take a quick break. Okay, welcome back, folks, to the program. It's just about, we have somewhere near 27 minutes remaining, and we're going to make good use of this because I need to get some things out of the way. Mr. Gumbs, before I go to the other form of energy, let's stay with the bridge just for a minute, because what has been generated here is the idea that as a result of this true port fee for fuel at the port is what's paying for this, in essence,
partially
paying for the bridge. Yeah.
And what is unfair about that
Yeah.
is that every client of GEBE is paying for that crossroad bridge, which many of them don't use,
Yeah.
don't know anything about,
So,
but they're paying for it.
so why didn't they find some other form of payment for it? Because everywhere in the world you go and anyone uses a bridge, there is usually a toll that goes with it.
Yes.
It's to maintain and to pay whatever cost there is for the
Because
facility.
we, or the person that made that decision at those days, thought, no, they don't have to pay nothing for the bridge. They can go over the bridge free. The French part, the Dutch part, everybody can go free because it's the GEBE consumer is partly paying for that same crossroad bit. And I think it's time that we speak up about it and ask ourselves if that is fair, and ask ourselves if we must maintain that idea that every consumer of GEB has to pay for that causeway bridge. That's the question. The question is, maybe it should be a toll bridge, because then the consumer of that bridge
Pay for it.
pays for it.
Yeah.
And the non-consumer doesn't have to pay it in his electricity bill.
Yeah.
That would be a possibility.
Yeah. And then you could drop the throughput fee. That for sure is going to bring a relief. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, you understand? But again, those are ideas, and it has to be worked out, because believe me, people are talking freely about lowering the fuel clause, but there is so much in it
That they don't even know where.
that they don't even know where it is. So we have to be well aware of that. And that's why I like to explain things, that at least we know that we're talking about the same things.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that I have the solution on it, but I can tell you what is in it and how we can look at it, and maybe we can reach to some agreement
Yeah.
as government that to ask yourself whether you find it fair that every GEBE client has to pay for a causeway bridge that they don't use, that they don't consume, and maybe they didn't even ask for it. But a lot of us use it
Yeah.
because it shortened the way to the French part and so on. It's a nice service, but when you want to give a nice
Who is
service,
paying for it? It's
you
unfair.
won't afford it.
Yeah.
You have to afford it. And if you're just putting it on the clients
Yeah.
of GEBE, there's something wrong.
Yeah, and also I think we have to make sure that our listening audience understand as well that the true port fee that now exists at the port started as a result of being able to finance this bridge.
The bridge, yes. That is why it started. Because they say everything that comes into the port
Yes.
is going to pay a piece of the bridge.
Yeah.
But it isn't true, because everything that comes into the port are consumed by we the people.
Yeah.
So we pay it.
Yeah.
We, the people,
That's
pay
a
it.
good point, because even the containers that come
Yeah.
in to the
We
port,
pay it, yes.
that's what make it more expensive.
Yeah, it makes more
for,
sense. So it goes in the price
yes.
of the goods we buy.
Yes.
So you understand, we pay it on several ways. We pay it in the price of our consumption goods.
Mm-hmm.
We pay it in the price of our electricity. So a lot of us pay, and who uses the bridge? Do we have a fair look of how is the intensity of the use of the bridge? Who benefits more of it? And why didn't we make a study of a toll bridge?
Yeah.
Because it's normal. All over Europe, all over the world, you pay toll because you're the direct consumer of
The bridge.
that bridge.
Yeah.
Of the
Yeah.
bridge.
Yeah.
And that is fair.
Yeah.
But we thought, no, we let every consumer of every client of GEBE pay its share for something maybe they didn't never use.
Never use. Okay, we are staying with the whole concept of bringing down the cost,
Yeah.
so that we can make it
That's
make
why
it
we're
cheaper.
talking about
Yeah.
the true.
There is another concept that was out there when we were talking about waste to energy situation. That wouldn't force GEBE to get rid of the old engines, but they are saying that the energy that would be generated as a result of burning the garbage would be fed into GEBE's grid at a lesser cost, and GEBE would have enough energy to be able to do.
I'm not a technician on that, but all I know, I can tell you out of my own experience, because I have spoken on the dump, how we can utilize gas that is formed in the dump.
That is generated there, yes.
I've been in Fort Lauderdale, and I saw how it was done, but the gas that was generated there was sent to a factory that made juices, consumption. But it didn't went to the electricity company because it didn't work on gas.
Oh.
And GEBE don't work on gas neither. We can use the gas maybe to help production companies, but how many production companies do we have on the island that uses gas? That's the question. Because when you burn or when you do something with the dump, it is in the dump gas is formed, and now it is floating freely
In the
around.
air, yes.
In the air or not, whatever it is. And I'm no technician, but I can imagine because I talked and discussed this, and then we talked, how we can maybe make that gas useful.
Trap it,
Yeah,
and then
somewhere,
make it use.
but it has to be useful. And I'm not a technician, so I can't talk about that. But again, that gas can go to the engines
That we have at GEBE.
at GEBE to make electricity, because we're using LFO and HFO. And believe me, the dump won't produce LFO or HFO.
No, but they were claiming that the system, when it's set up,
Yeah.
it would trap the heat, whatever it is. It
Yeah.
would form some kind of gas, like you're saying, and that would be energy
That can
could
be used
fed.
in,
Yes.
in another system or whatever it is. But again, let me be very clear about this. Our electricity plant works on LFO and HFO.
Period.
Period. That dump will not produce LFO or HFO.
So whatever have to be transferred is going to cost something. So you're saying it's going to still cost. What about, there's another thing, the solar panels. What about that one?
Oh, solar panels. We had, I remember that there was a project that they started out in many lands that, yes, you could produce with your own solar panels electricity, but we had a problem of how to put them in batteries or something, how to what we overproduce, what to do with it. And we didn't have batteries and also, so it was sent back to the grid. But it disturbed the grid because the how you say, the amperage, I don't know, I'm sorry.
The amperage?
But I'm not a technician.
The amps, the amount of amps.
But it has a certain volt wire, a certain wave that goes through it, and it wasn't always the good one. So it was disturbing the grid. So people, the GEBE started thinking, from, why would we do that? It's your problem. You want to produce electricity, and if you produce too much and you can't use it.
So you think we are trapped right now in GEBE with those engines for LSO, LHO, and HOO?
The major problem is, how are we going to renew our electricity plant? The engines, the how you call them again? The generators we use, how are we going to renew them? How are we going to bring modern generators that use less energy, lose less fuel, and produce more electricity? That's what we have to go to. But that means to say there must come a major plant. Two things is to renew our engines down there. But one thing that really disturbs me, did you go down there?
Yeah.
The place doesn't look well. We have 5 engines in the building that needs to be demolished.
Yeah.
It is no face, man. It is terrible. So there are much things to do. And then, if you see all those things that needs to be done, you can ask yourself the question, how can a company like GEBE think it can generate less income and do all these things? No, probably they'll have to go to the financial market to borrow the money. But then you have to come with a result. And when you read the report of RCRC, what they are the prognosis gives, they're going to make so much
electricity?
Not electricity. They're going to make a gain of so much.
Profit.
A profit of so much. Man, we don't reach it. For 2024, we profited about 20 million, over 20 million. We didn't even have 11, and it haven't been audited yet. So we're 10 million under the profit level that we thought. And the profit was that it would grow with the years, but 2024 we didn't even make it for all kinds of reasons. But still, and we don't have to forget the hacking of GEBE.
Yes.
That hacked in it too. We don't talk about it because how could you put the hacking in the price? But it did cause a lot of loss by GEBE that they couldn't send out the bills on time, and some people got terrible bills, very large bills that people said, how is it possible? I never used to pay that kind of price. And then they couldn't explain it. And the only thing they could tell you, well, if you don't get to arrangement, we'll have to cut you off. But you can't, it's a utility. You can't go without electricity or water. So what you do, you force yourself to reach to a deal. But that's not the way to go. That's why it's a huge problem that has to be looked at as a huge problem. And of course we can cut it in pieces, but remember, it isn't simple. Bring down the fuel clause and we have the solution. Because we still have the old engines.
Yeah.
And they have to run. And they run on LFO, HFO.
This is pretty complex, huh?
Yeah, and we don't have no power on the price that we'll have to pay for the LFO and HFO. We just get a bill, and it needs to be paid. GEBE gets a bill, and they have to pay it, or they can't get the LFO or HFO no more, and then they can't produce. So it's a vicious circle you're in, and it's ask creativity. But I want to say one thing more, and maybe no, I'm not. I won't say that. It's, no.
What are you holding back from us? You promised to give us information.
No, you know what I wanted to say? I sometimes have the feeling that there are people that they believe they go work for GEBE, they make a lot of fuss, or they threaten to leave, and they want money, and they want big money. GEBE isn't a place for gold diggers. GEBE is a place for creative management. And I'm not saying that's it, but we have to bear in mind GEBE is having a tough time, and we don't need individuals that have their own plan,
their own interests at heart,
and
yes,
their own interests at heart. No, we need GEBE's interest, because GEBE is the people. That's why you're working for. You're working for the people. Be aware of that, and not that, yes, if they don't get me this, I'll take them to court, or I do the. Guys, we have to be cautious with the people we employ. We have to be very careful with the people we employ to make them work for the people. Because it's working for the people. It's a utility company. And I didn't want to say it because it sounds very political, but it's more of a warning. Be aware, and it's for everybody. Those days that GEBE has millions to spend belong to the far past. We have problem of making the millions because we have an old plant, a lot of problem, and our production is going down, but the prices for lubricants, the prices for LFO, prices for HFO ain't going down, going up. So it means it's a tightrope that we're working, and we have to be aware of that. That's the message that I would like to give. And it's, again, it might sound political, but it's a warning that it's serious business by GEBE. That serious problem that needs to be solved. And therefore we need creative minds, willing minds to give the best for the people, to the people.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry.
Well, still, I don't know how far we have gotten when it comes to giving the assurance that something can be done in quick time.
No,
to make
I can assure you,
energy
it's not possible.
cheaper for the
It's not
subscribers.
possible, not at a short time, but it is possible if we take tough decisions like what we're talking about. We've been talking about the true
port fee.
Yeah,
that's you think that's one place we could start?
That's the one thing we can do, but it means that we'll have another problem.
Yeah, who's going to pay for the bridge?
Well, then maybe we have to combine it with taking that away and bringing in the toll. But then
and that's going to be another discussion because we are not a customer paying toll.
No,
we are customer being free.
And the whole thing of the congestion that you're gonna get because people have to
avoid the toll.
It's gonna be a whole set of things that maybe people thought about it and decided that we're not gonna do it on that and that reason, for that or that reason. But let's try to be open to the consumer, because every consumer of GEBE is paying for the Causeway Bridge. And let's be clear about that. and ask yourself, is that fair? I want to leave it by that.
All right. I can't ask for too much. I did, in fact, get the opportunity to have this discussion with you, and I think you laid it out quite nicely as to what the fuel cost is all about and the whole makeup of the bill. But at the end of the day, what appease or what gives satisfaction to the consumers
consumer.
of GEBE is that they can pay less. It's expensive.
I
Some
know.
people are taking all that they make.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And maybe you have that information. I don't have that information. I see what I pay, and I see what I understand, and I try to understand it. But I know one thing. In Curacao, some years ago, they decided to lower the fuel cost. And 2 years after that decision, they
Did they
quickly
reverse it?
had to reverse it because the company Aguileta almost went bankrupt. Curacao always ended up in the dark because they couldn't do it. So they had to borrow money from the market and pump a lot of money in Aguileta to get it on its feet back. Is that what we want for St.Maarten? Don't we look around us and see what did others do and how did that work out? Is that what we want to? Do we want that?
Yeah. As far as you know, the triple fee, which was initiated as a result of the bridge, must have a timeline on it where it should expire.
It was 20 years.
20 years.
I
So
think it was about
until
20 years.
that 20 years expire, there's no chance
But
that
you can
unless you have an alternative.
Yeah, you could refinance the whole expense charge of the bridge.
Yeah.
As we said, you can look at the toll. Maybe if that is a possibility. I don't know. But as I said, is it fair to charge every consumer of GEBE for a causeway bridge? That's the question.
Yeah, but that we gone past that because that decision was taken for us to be able to enjoy the Causeway Bridge. But now we're looking at giving it a second look, and you realize that it seems very much unfair when you come to those persons who have to pay for the bridge, and there are other people who are using the bridge that really don't have to.
Again, that isn't a short-term solution because that was the question.
Yeah.
That was the question asked by the Prime Minister to RCRC, and the answer was there is really no chance of doing something about that on a short period. You have to look at your calculation of.
Of course, this is your view as to how we can quickly address it. So, what was promised to us by, let's say, the Prime Minister of recent time, that they would be able to bring the cost down?
Yeah, he was trying to bring the cost down. At least, I believe he's really concerned about it, but then he's confronted with the reality of things.
So it becomes a false promise.
And sometimes the reality of things makes that you can't always achieve the promise you make. But I think he's still working on it because I genuinely believe that he knows, just as we all know, the pain that the clients of GEBE are suffering. They find it too expensive, and you can't ignore that. You'll have to be creative in finding a solution for that problem. You can't just dismiss it. Oh, we can't do nothing about it. So quit talking about it because it is what it is. No, you have to respect the people because you're sitting there to work for the people and not anything else. You work for the people and you hear the cry of the people, and you'll have to have ear to it and find a solution. That's why. That's your job.
The people are not going to forgive that easily when nothing is done. Huh? And time is really flying.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Time is really flying by, and they would always remember that you make a promise. And as long as we can see the tangibility of the promise.
I believe in the well-intended promise, but I think reality caught up.
It's more heavier.
It's much heavier than it is, and they're working on a solution because there will be a solution. I can assure you, in the long run, it will be solved one way or the other.
All right, let's make that the final word.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing that information with us.
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for inviting me.
Mr. Ed Gumbs, of course, he once sat on the board of GEBE, and hence the reason why he was in a very good place to explain to us how this whole system works. One thing he didn't give us a promise that there can be a quick fix, but we'll wait on the promise from the Prime Minister that something would be done on behalf
and
of the consumers.
Member of Parliament is working on it too.
Okay.
Don't forget it. I don't know. I believe that Parliament, if they get together with the Prime Minister, so
they can make it happen.
Find a solution.
All right. That's it for this afternoon, folks. Thank you so much for joining us on In The View. We are here every Wednesday afternoon, 5 until 6, and it's about 6 now, so we have to say goodbye. And over to the newsroom we go. Goodbye.